Hi, and welcome back to Beans and Bezels. Seaborne is a microbrand based in Duxbury, Massachusetts, here in the United States, and they make nautical and ocean inspired watches. The Seaborne Seaventure was successfully launched through Kickstarter earlier this year. With the brand mission of helping and supporting coastal communities, 5% of all their profits are donated to organizations supporting these communities of small boat fishing families and fisheries. The Seaventure line of watches currently retails at $369, and occasionally you can find discount coupons for around $30. Let's check it out. The case is a pretty typical Rolex Submariner homage or clone case, so I won't go into the details too much. The case is 40mm in diameter, 48mm from lug to lug, and 13mm in height. It has polished sides and brushed top surfaces. The crown and guards are different from that of a Rolex Submariner, and it has a smaller crown, almost completely tucked between its crown guards. The ridges on the crown are good, but could have been slightly deeper for a better grip. There isn't any crown or stem wobble, and has a pretty solid feeling for a $360 Seiko NH35 equipped watch. The bezel is one of my favorite aspects of this watch. The beautiful colors, clean execution, and vintage Blancpain 50 fathom style appearance make this incredibly appealing to me. The 120-click unidirectional bezel action is solid, and there isn't any backplay. A very good job here. The bezel has a printed triangle at the 12 o'clock that has a loomed circular marker in the center. This is filled with BGW9 Super Luminova. I'll give credit here because a lot of brands would have skipped that loomed element altogether in a printed design like this, but they didn't. Flipping it over, there's a solid screw-down case back with an etched or engraved nautilus shell. Both the case back and crown screw down into the case, but this watch is only rated for up to 100 meters of water resistance. Realistically, this should be sufficient for almost all of us, but I'm curious about why they didn't get this rated for 200 or 300 meters instead. The case is pretty standard for Submariner clones, and those are typically rated for at least 200 meters. This watch is offered in 4 different variants, and I was sent the Sunrise option to review. I'll be honest here and say that I wasn't expecting much from these dials, because the stock photographs on the Seaborne website make these watches look quite dull and unimpressive. I was very wrong. This dial looks fantastic in person, and the dial and bezel pairing on the Sunrise is just perfect. It manages to be fun and summery without looking tacky at all. There's a black outer chapter ring that has white printed markers. The chapter ring is aligned perfectly, and I think the black color helps the colors transition from the blue bezel to the orange dial. Moving inward, you have applied stainless steel indices that are filled with BGW9 Super Luminova. Apart from the 12 o'clock and 6 o'clock Arabic numeral hour markers, the rest of the indices are simple rectangles, and the simple design helps balance out the otherwise loud dial quite nicely. I really like the Arabic numerals at the 12 and 6 o'clock positions. I also appreciate the fact that they're well loomed. All the rectangular indices are well finished with no smudges, scratches, or dirt. I did notice some dust or dirt on the 6 o'clock numeral, but given that this watch costs $360 and is otherwise quite neatly executed, I'm more than happy to accept this. There's a date window at the 3 o'clock position that has a black date wheel with a white font. I would have preferred a date window at the 6 o'clock, but this doesn't draw too much attention, so I think it's okay. The hands are polished, finished well, and have a good amount of lume in them. The seconds hand has an orange tip and is filled with lume too. From a design perspective, I would have liked to see a contrasting seconds hand tip, and the orange tip sometimes gets lost in the sea of orange. Maybe a black tip would have suited this better. Either way, the finishing on the handset is very good for a $360 watch. Both the minute and the seconds hand stop before the outer chaptering, but I personally prefer when at least the seconds hand extends over the chaptering markers for better readability. Overall, the dial is bold, bright, and quite impressive. I've grown to enjoy the color palette of this watch, and I think it is the perfect summer watch. All the loomed elements use BGW9 Super Luminova, and they are all generously loomed. The seconds hand tip and bezel 12 o'clock are also loomed, so I really have no complaints with the loom layout. In terms of brightness, this watch is more than satisfactory. The loomed elements are bright and hold their charge well. I like that the 12 o'clock and 6 o'clock Arabic numeral indices are also loomed. I think it looks great in the dark. The Seaventure uses a Seiko NH35 movement. This isn't a surprise considering the $370 price tag. We're all quite familiar with this movement by now, so I won't bother talking about it. I logged the accuracy of this watch over a 3-day period and observed roughly plus 6 seconds per day. This watch feels very much like my Submariner on my 6 1/4 inch wrist because of the similar case design. The case is roughly 40mm in diameter, 48mm from lug to lug, and 13mm tall. The proportions are perfect for my wrist, and I don't really have any complaints here. You can pick from 6 different strap options, 4 NATO and 2 silicone. While I'm more than pleased with the colors of the dial and bezel, the strap colors were a bit too much for me, and in my opinion I would go with their plain black straps or look for something aftermarket. I had it on my Nodus Tech Tough waterproof strap for the duration of this review. To wrap things up, I really enjoyed spending time with this watch, and even though it is a typical Submariner style case, it delivers a lot more than just a Submariner homage experience. You quickly forget the case design and get carried away by the interesting color palette and the well executed dial and bezel. For $369, I don't really have any complaints about this watch. I can see some folks wanting a metal bracelet, and given that the case is pretty standard stuff, I'm sure finding an aftermarket bracelet won't be difficult at all. The current strap offerings are a bit too out there for my taste, but I'm not the most adventurous, so don't take my word for it. I do recommend trying to pair it with something a little more subtle, like a black sailcloth or a tropic rubber strap. My only complaint here is not with the watch, but with the website and the photographs. They don't do this watch justice, or any of the dials justice at all, and these watches are in dire need of professional photography, as they look pretty awesome in person. But this problem is easy to fix, and I hope Seaborne gets on it ASAP. As always, thanks for watching, and be sure to read the full-length review in the link below.